right, guys, welcome back. So we are recording today, and rather than do a five-star review, I'll tell you a quick story. We won our softball 12U big fancy rec league thing last night, so kind of jazzed and excited about that, planning all the postseason parties and getting the trophy and all that. But the reason why I share that story with you is to kind of intro the topic that we're going to talk about today. At the very beginning of the season, I talked to this group of girls, this particular team, about who we were as a team and what our goals were as a team. And they said, Coach, we want to win the championship. That's what we want to do. We talked about what that meant and what we needed to do in order to achieve the goal. That it wasn't just set the goal and then we allow things to happen. We have specific things we do, and we needed to have an identity as a team, such as teamwork, working hard, practicing, accepting coaching, and understanding that coaches know how to do it better and are looking to make us better. So we had to be good at accepting feedback from coaching and looking for that, and also raising the level up of our teammates. So we had to say positive things to our teammates. We had to encourage them. We were not discouraging teammates. We weren't going to infight within our team, and we were going to display good sportsmanship throughout the team. So we got all this buy-in, and of course things came up during the season where we had to go back to knowing what our identity was as a team and that identity that we had all agreed on, so that when there was trouble, we could push through it and go, oh, yeah, that's right. I'm being selfish. I need to look to the bigger picture. So today we're going to focus on a topic called the Enneagram. Many of you guys may have never heard of this one before. It's a great conversation, great topic. A guy named Corey Carlson's been on in the past, and Corey's a coach, and he also loves the Enneagram. So I've loved being able to spend time with him and talk to him about it. There's a number of different books out there. I've read two of them. One of the books is by Jeff and Beth McCord. It's called Becoming Us. Really, really cool book. I encourage everybody to read that one. It's about creating a thriving, using the Enneagram to create a thriving gospel centered marriage. So, as you guys know, I always talk about marriage and how important that is. And so, with all that said, welcome, Beth McCord, to the Journey of a Christian Dad podcast. Excited to have you with us.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, Jeff and Beth have written all these Enneagram books, and Beth has written a new one on her own. And the title's going to throw you. Sometimes I do this to you guys. It's Enneagram for Moms. Dan, why should I listen to Enneagram for Moms? Like, why would we have this topic? So, just like the softball team, if we use the Enneagram tools to understand ourselves, and if we're reading a book in a mom wording type way book, we can also understand our wives better as well. So there's a double benefit there. Using the tools of the Enneagram, you'll be able to understand yourself better and others. And when you're listening to mom language, you'll be able to shift into that role and go, huh, moms think this way. Dads don't think this way. And the original title of this book was Enneagram for Parents, and then shifted it and changed a couple of the words and everything in the book to go over to the mom side. So, what I've read of this book, I'm like, oh, cool. That gives me extra insight into how my wife may think, in addition to just the Enneagram personality types as well. So, um, the kind of the mom fixing was the thing that I really, really jumped out with this book. But Beth, so excited to have you with us. So, guys, that's the preview of kind of where we're going with this conversation. So, Beth, excited to have you with us.
Yeah, thank you.
What was something, and besides you like having a burning desire to write this book for years, outside of that, what was something in this book where you're like, I just can't wait for this part of the book to get out to
Yeah.
families and to moms?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, and it's kind of one of the first stories in the book that I tell, and I think this is going to be really helpful for the men out there that, have wives that are moms, that are raising kids. But even before being a mom and raising kids, this is still something that us women really struggle with. And I'm not saying that men don't struggle with this. I don't know to what degree or how it looks different. But for us moms, so we lived on a seminary campus in St. Louis, Covenant Theological Seminary, kind of down the road from you, kind of not. A good, 30-minute drive.
Yeah, yeah, 20, 30 minutes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but so we lived on the campus in an apartment. And so moms, we would go out and go to the playground and hang out with one another and let our kids play. And it was a beautiful experience, but also in my mind and the emotions that I would also be struggling with was I would see one mom like, oh wow, she is so assertive and protective of her kids. Wow, that's amazing. And then I would see another mom like, wow, she is emotionally connected with her kids. She draws out the uniqueness of their kids, really pays attention on that level. Then I would see another mom go, wow, look at her. She is so fun and spontaneous. And, I'd go on and on and on with all these different moms, because when you're out on the playground, you're kind of putting on your best foot forward. And we kind of know that, but we're just focusing on what we're seeing. And so I go back home and I know what I'm like at the playground and back at home. So I'm feeling less than within myself because I'm like, oh, I wish I was like that, or I wish I was like that, and all these things. So I'd come back home and I told my husband one time, and he's like, Beth, you're literally taking the best characteristics of all of these women, which are great, but you're creating one big super mom that nobody can become, nobody can live up to. And and then he said, and plus, you don't know their struggles behind closed doors. And that really opened up my mind like, wow, I'm literally setting myself up for failure. Now, this was back in 2001. This was before much of, I mean, we had the internet, but not
Yeah.
really, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't have social media. We didn't even have a cell phone. Like there was no texting, there was no constant barrage of information. And why I say that is it was really hard back then. And what women are having to struggle with right now, I just can't even fathom what young moms and just moms in general, but women also are struggling with the barrage of influencers and the opinions of everyone in the comment sections and stuff like that. So here I was back in the day setting up this super woman, super mom that I literally was setting myself up for failure, setting myself up to think less than myself. And then you add to it what maybe the Christian culture, not what God is saying,
Hmm.
but the Christian culture is saying you should be this, or you should be that. You should be humble and meek, or you should be, whatever it is. You put in, what the culture is saying. And the different Enneagram types, so there's 9 basic types. You've got one mom who's very strong and assertive. Well, you've got the Christian culture and maybe just our culture in America saying you should be humble, quiet, meek. And she's like, well, that's not me. I'm not good enough. I'm a failure. But then there's someone like me who's like very kind of go along to get along. And you might have a part of our culture that's like, you should be assertive and you should um, do these things. And I'm like, well, that's not me. I'm a failure. And so, why I'm bringing that up is that when I started using the Enneagram, I realized, oh, wait, God created me to be a type 9, the peaceful accommodator. He didn't create me to be the 8, the passionate protector. He didn't create me to be the type 5, the analytical investigator. He created me to be me. And not only that, he created me to reflect him in a beautiful way. Now, the fall is here. And we have the ramifications of the fall, but his design of how I would reflect him is incredible and beautiful. And that's why we're all striving to become more like him, more like Christ. But it's also nuanced in the way he designed me. I don't have to become these other women. And what if I took that understanding also? Now, it doesn't mean that I don't you bring in some of those incredible aspects. It's not that I'm leaving those out completely, but I don't have to live up to the things that I think society or my mind is telling me to. I want to focus on the path that God has me on, the bent, how we talk raising our kids and the way they should go, the bent. Well, what's
Hmm.
the bent that God created me in? And so I wrote the book to help moms and parents really to find a safe place that they could learn about themselves and that they can put aside all of these other images of moms, parents, husbands, wives that are swimming in their mind and really pulling them down. I wanted to give them a boost up like, no, you are made in an amazing way. Let's focus on that. Yes, we do need to focus on the things that we struggle with, our weaknesses, sins, all that stuff. And the Enneagram does a very good job being very clear about those things. But the Enneagram isn't the gospel, meaning the Enneagram is just a tool. It's just going to reveal very clearly what's going on from healthy to unhealthy and why. The biggest thing is the why you think, feel, and behave. And we'll get into that here in a second. But the gospel takes it a whole nother stage further. So, yes, we know why we're doing this or at what level of health we're doing it. The gospel is what redeems us. And the gospel is what frees us to become and enables us to become more like Christ. That's what is most important. But think about the Enneagram as kind of like, I know for men, think of it as a cheat sheet, a map. We usually call it an internal GPS. It's going to help you to know your current location, which is your main Enneagram type, and your healthiest destination. So let's say I'm in Nashville now, and what if I was, going to drive to St. Louis? Well, you put in the coordinates and then you just follow the lead,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Well, if we are not aware of how to use the internal GPS, we might just kind of do our own thing. And I start veering off into another direction and I'm heading towards New York. Well, not a good idea, right? The Enneagram gives you the understanding that you're doing that and a way to get back. But it isn't the thing that gets us back. That's the gospel. That's Jesus Christ. And the coolest thing about the gospel is that the victory has been won. We know ultimately that we will be with him in glory, that everything has been taken care of. But on earth, we're still struggling. We keep going off course. We need to recalculate, get back on course. And so the Enneagram is going to reveal the why, the heart condition of where we're at. Are we aligned, misaligned, or out of alignment with the truth of the gospel? And that affects our relationship with ourselves, others, and our relationship with God. And so, why not use a tool that gives us that cheat sheet, that map, that GPS system that says, you need to reroute and go this way instead? And so that's why when I say we, Jeff and I love it. He went to seminary in St. Louis, as I mentioned before the podcast. And when I started using the Enneagram way back in 2001, when my kids were 1 and 3, and this is way before it became a popular thing, a lot of the teachers did teach from their worldview perspective. So you had some Catholic mystics, you had New Age, you had neutral faith. It was just everywhere. And so when I was reading, just like we a lot of times have to do as Christians, you have to filter it a lot. And over the years, it was so great having a husband who spent 4 years in seminary getting his MDiv to then go, okay, wait, this person is saying this, and I can see the truth in it, but I don't agree with how they've worded this. How would we more biblically say that? And he would go, oh, yeah, da 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 da. I'm like, oh, yeah, of course. Like, thank you. And so then I was able to start using the Enneagram from that Christian perspective, focusing my heart on the redemption that Christ has already given me, but the ongoing work of redemption that he is doing in me. And also because God is all about our heart, this was that clear explanation of my heart and why I was doing what I was doing. And so I was like, man, this is great. I mean, it's hard because it's revealing some big truths that I don't always want to see or deal with. But man, it's really getting to the core of things so that I can address it and ask the Holy Spirit to work with me. And, bring in the support groups, like your small
Mm-hmm.
groups and people that you trust, friends that are on the same journey as you. And that we can have those deeper, richer conversations that are honest and vulnerable, but get you to where you really want to go. So, saying all that, the reason why I wrote the book is that moms are really, really struggling with the barrage of you should be like this, you should be like that. I mean, we already think that way. And then we're being swallowed whole that we are not good enough and
Mm.
we weren't made right. There's something wrong with us, and that we should, kind of almost like give up, or we should become something that we're not. And it's just so difficult. It feels like we're walking in cement. And so I wrote the book for them. But as husbands are listening into this right now, I encourage them to also read it to get a glimpse of the world of a mom, the things that she is struggling with that you may not have any struggle with, which is great. We don't want everyone to have the exact same struggles, but what we do want is for you to come alongside as a partner, and being able to take off your lens, the way that you see the world, and put on her lens for a second, whether it's her lens as a woman or her lens as her Enneagram type, and be a champion of her just as much as you want her to be a champion of who you are and what you struggle with as a man. So, anyway, that's in a nutshell kind of why I wrote the book. I guess it's not a nutshell. That was a big, that was a lot, but that's it.
Oh, I've got so many thoughts. One of the things I want to hear in just a bit is maybe a story of peeling back the layers, especially when it comes to feeling less than. I want to go back for a little bit just for guys that caught something but was like, wait, I missed it. 99% of everybody listening was like, got it, the fall, moving on.
Yeah.
1% maybe, what was that? So the fall, we're referring back to original sin. We're referring back to the forbidden fruit. Once that happened, of course, everything for all of humanity for all time was changed. So we were no longer in the Garden of Eden in perfection. So anyway, FYI, if you heard that a couple times, we're just referring back to, once things change. So fast forward a little bit, Beth was talking about the comparison game. Oh my goodness, if I've learned something over the years, it's that people in general love comparison, and often we use it on the negative side. And the playground game, the after school pickup, the whatever it is, the mom game, and how moms feel. It might not be true. Moms might not be judging everybody. A lot of them are. However, every mom I feel like feels like they're being judged and is always looking out for, gosh, I sure hope that this doesn't happen, and feelings of less than, and um, advance that a little bit and think about our kids. Uh, Guys for sure, boys for sure, but oh my goodness, if you don't raise your girl up, if you don't raise your daughter up, if you don't put a good foundation, and ooh, I've got daughters, and that just got me emotional thinking about um, how much I speak into their lives. And I think about my softball team, and I was sharing a story with my wife this morning about something I spoke into a girl last night, and the girl gave me a big hug after I said it. She turned to walk away, took 3 steps away, and turned backwards and came back to me and gave me a huge hug again. And I could just feel the emotion in her because it struck a chord of something that she feels less than in a certain area in her life. And I was trying to give her the freedom of, you don't need to feel that way. You're already a wonderful person.
Yeah.
You're 12 years old now. She just had a birthday, and like, it's okay. Like, you don't need to feel less than for what you feel less than. Like, break free. So as you were talking about breaking through things and understanding what God's design for us is, and that we're all designed uniquely and differently, and that's good.
Yeah.
That's the way God did it.
Well, and here's the thing that I love to offer you as a coach, but it goes for everyone. But I think that story, all there are 9 basic types, and why we do what we do is the whole theme of the Enneagram. And the reason why we do what we do, we think, feel, behave, is based on 4 core motivations. So each type has a core fear, what you're trying to run away from or prevent from happening. You have a core desire, what you think will give you your biggest heart's like desire. Oh man, I just got to achieve that and life will be perfect and fine. Then you have a core weakness. This is your Achilles heel, your thorn in the side. This is what keeps tripping you up all the time. And then you have a core longing. This is the message your heart longs to hear. Now, there's a lot more to the Enneagram but that. But when you're trying to find your main type, that's what you're going to want to look at is those core motivations. And at yourenneagramcoach.com/core motivations, anyone can get a free PDF download of each of the types core motivations. So, but the reason why I want to share that with you is as a parent, as a coach, you may not know or your spouse or your parents, it doesn't matter who it is, you may not know their Enneagram type, but what you can know is that they are a type. They have a particular lens that they're looking through, and they have 4 core motivations. And so if you can gain insight of all 9 types, now you don't even have to learn everything about the Enneagram. If you just learn about the core motivations of all 9 types, you will have so much to offer the world because you'll know, oh, a type 8 fears being betrayed, being blindsided, being manipulated, harmed, and left at the mercy of injustice. Their core desire is to protect themselves and those in their small inner circle. And then their core weakness is lust or excess, meaning they just love intensity. They love to charge forward. They're going to push hard. That brings life to them, but it can also push over other people. And then for them, though, their core longing, the message their heart longs to hear is you will not be betrayed. Well, that is very different than for me as a type 9, the peaceful accommodator. My core, and I'm not going to go through all 9 types, but I'm just going to give you a difference and what you as a coach or a parent or a husband, whoever, how you can use these core motivations. So for me as a type 9, my fear is conflict of any kind, tension, feeling overlooked, loveless, and any kind of discord with others. My desire is to have inner stability and peace of mind and harmony. But my core weakness is sloth. Now, this isn't a physical laziness because 9s can be some of the busiest on the Enneagram. There's several presidents that were 9s, but it is a internal laziness of not knowing ourselves because we fear that conflict and tension so much. What we do is we go along to get along. We forego knowing ourselves for the sake of others. And that's the sloth. Okay. And so we basically don't know ourselves well because we've merged with everyone else. But my core longing is to hear what my heart longs to hear is your presence matters. So wouldn't it be awesome if you knew all the 9 types and their core motivations? Because for you as a coach, we all want to hear the core longings of all 9 types. Of course, I want to know that I'm not going to be betrayed, but that's not the top of my list. I mean, you might say that to me because I'm not saying you're a type 8, but let's say you're a
Yeah.
type 8 and that's the message you're giving me. Like, I'm not going to betray you. I'm like, well, yeah, cool. Thanks. That is nice. But if you were to communicate to me as that 12-year-old girl that my presence matters, that I'm okay just as I am, that you see me, I don't have to morph into someone else to have peace and harmony and to feel important, that I as I am matter. Wow, I would have done the exact same. And so, as a parent, as a husband, as a coach, if we just learn those things and you just keep kind of figuring out, okay, I wonder if they need this message, or I wonder if, because you don't know their type. So you're just kind of trying your best by understanding, studying them, getting to know them, asking curious questions. You might be able to somewhat land on a couple numbers and try out a few. You know, like the type 9 can look very similar to the type 2, and they want to know that they're loved and wanted. Well, that kind of sounds similar. So, what if you said messages that were in that ballpark? And so then you're starting to communicate to their absolute core. You are going to see these people shine just like you saw, and you're going to change lives. You're going to change your marriage. You're going to change your kids. And it's just based off of these 4 core motivations. Now, like I said, the Enneagram in these books, it goes deeper and wider. And the back of our books are the husbands will love this. They're cheat sheets. They're just bullet points. So even if you skip, the front part, which I'm writing and helping you understand things, even if you just get to the back half of the book, you are going to have gold. Just keep it nearby. keep looking at it and like, oh, okay, she wants me to communicate like this to her. And that's how even you as a coach can go, okay, so I think this person's this type. And everyone has to name their own type because it's about why. Every person can do the same behavior, but why they do it can be very different
So
according
I
to their.
hear you talking about the why part of why people do things, and I often hear conversations of, gosh, all this and struggle and stuff and people and junk and gosh, I don't know why she's doing all this stuff or he's doing all this stuff or whatever. And I was like, if we knew their core personality and we knew what was important to them and knew their under, so seek first to understand.
Yes.
I'm like, if we were over here and we had all of the inside knowledge of what's going on in their brain,
Yep.
and when you understand personality types, whether it's Enneagram or Myers-Briggs or
Mm-hmm.
any of those type different things, so like the core fears, desires, weakness, longing, uh, it's like if you knew that, oh, so a quick example. I've got a bookkeeper that does an amazing job that helps me out at these softball games. I always want to know how many outs there are. Like I'm focused on other things. Hey, one out, right? No, coach, there's two. There was the strikeout and the other thing. Okay. Well, last night he comes up and he says, hey, just, or 2 nights ago, he comes up and he says, here's the thing. On this one, I draw these. I don't know what level of detail you want when I'm keeping score because I keep track of everything. And when I write a little S, that means she stole the base and they were trying to actively throw her out, but she accomplished it. And then when I write a little dot, that means she stole the base, but the other team really just didn't care. Like there was no, so that way you know. Because I don't know how much level of detail you want. I don't
Yeah.
really care.
Right. Exactly.
What I do care about is if that information is available, somebody can feed it back to me whenever I need it.
Yes, exactly. And that's what the back half of the book is. Now, obviously, it's great.
However, if I didn't understand his
Right.
personality type, knowing his level of, I want to
Mm-hmm.
be 110% in the way that I keep this information so that it can be used to the best level,
Yep.
I would have, I don't care about any of that.
Yep.
And then discounted his work.
Yep.
And if had I not paid any attention to it, maybe I lose my best bookkeeper.
Right. Because he's feeling unimportant or dismissed. It kind of depends on what his type is and why. But
And my
also,
personality
uh-huh,
isn't that way.
yeah,
So I could be incredibly annoyed at the
right.
level of detail that he's
Yes.
trying to share with me. And like,
Like just
I'm
get to the
going
point.
crazy. Yeah, just give me the point. Like, just let's move on. Like, I got something I got to pay attention to during the game.
Yeah. Yeah. But
So that helped
you
me
but you
not.
learning just a little bit, you didn't have to know everything, but you learning how he was writing it down, just taking the time to listen to the legend or the key, so like he's giving you the key of what S's mean and what dots mean. You don't need to learn that again. You got it. But when you want to know, you can go back and now when you see the S or the dot, you know what that means. And that's the same with the Enneagram. You don't have to be me and go into the expert level. Even if you take, like I said, we do most of our work, like becoming us, which is the marriage thing, and this parenting, most of the work that we do is at the core motivation level. Yes, the Enneagram is a very complex system. I mean, there are layers after layers after layers. But guess what? If you just focus on the core motivations, you can radically change your life, radically change your spouse, your kids, your coworkers, whoever. Your relationships can really thrive. I do recommend that they read at least the back half of the book on each of the types once to gain that kind of, oh, this is the key. This is the legend. This is how things work in this map system. I got it. Now I'll come back when I've had, let's say, an argument or I communicated something that obviously landed on them wrong. Come back and look at the communication style or the conflict style, or, and then, oh, yes, that's why. And what you're doing is, like I said, think of the Enneagram as each of the 9 types wearing glasses that have their own colored lens. Let's say you're wearing green, I'm wearing purple. Well, we've lived with our lenses forever. And so we don't know that everyone else is seeing the world differently.
Yes, yes.
And so, like you're like, why are you giving me all this detail? I don't care. Nobody cares. Well, that's not true. There are others that really do care. So, for you in that second, you're able to take off your lens for just a second, put on his lens in the sense that you're like, okay, he really gave me his best effort. This was important to him, and I'm listening to him. I don't have to listen to him forever and ever, always, but I'm respecting him where he's at. And so the Enneagram helps you to put on other people's lenses quickly. Doesn't mean you're going to be there forever, but it shows them that you're empathetic, you're compassionate, that you care. And man, if there's one thing your wives are wanting, is just to show that you're willing to take off your lens, your perspective, and put on hers. You will be so amazed when you do that, the reaction and the closeness, the intimacy that you will gain with your wife if you just do that one thing.
So think about maybe two, three, four, 29 different things that husbands should be able to, or not should be, but if you would understand what your wives are thinking or their why for different things that maybe most husbands have to discover over time or maybe never discover that is pretty common knowledge among wives. I'll give you an example. My wife has ADHD, and I was reading a book about, I think it was wives with ADHD, and my wife sees it and she goes, "Hey, I see the book you're reading. How come you're reading that?" I said, "Well, I want to learn more about the topic." And she says, "But you're not a wife and you don't have ADHD." Well, at the time, I hadn't really thought about it. Since then, I found out I got a little bit of ADHD too. But my answer back to her was, "Well, you have ADHD and you're a wife, and I would like to understand what it's like to be a wife with ADHD. I like to understand your world better so that I can love you better." And oh my goodness, she just like, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard in my life type of a response. She's like,
Yeah,
"You would read an entire 300 page book so that you can understand me better." I said, "Yeah, it's not a big deal to me, but to her, it was a
it meant the world.
Herculean effort." And
Well, because she knows, like just like you said a second ago, you don't need all the details. But what you're saying here is, I want the details because this topic matters so much to me.
mhm,
Like the how the bases are stolen and all the little things, like, yeah, that's important, but it's not the biggest deal in the world for you. But if it was the biggest deal in the world for you, like something about your daughters, you would learn exactly how your bookkeeper is writing everything down because your daughters matter so much to you, or your wife. And that's what you're saying. And so what you're doing is communicating to her, you matter. You are important enough for me to take the time to learn this. And yeah, for a woman, that I don't care what Enneagram type you are, that is a game changer.
can you give us a couple examples or maybe things guys can look out for or just any advice in that topic? One that comes to mind quickly was years ago, I learned that women value and are very aware of security and protection daily, hourly. No matter where you go, you're okay. Here's the environment, and here's the things that I am looking out for. Here's the possible child predator that's going to take my kid away, and the things where guys aren't as aware. Guys aren't
Mhm.
feeling physically threatened on a daily basis. Where in a room I was in, they, surveyed women. I'm like, holy cow, like everybody raised their hand that today I felt physically threatened.
Mm,
I'm like, let me go ask my guy friends, and we're all going to say, what are you talking about?
right. Yeah. Yeah. I would say, so from an Enneagram perspective, yes. And no matter what topic you would bring up today, I would always say yes. And the reason there's a yes and is because how that topic is then seen, perceived, interpreted, and then responded to is different by each Enneagram type. Meaning, like my example earlier about the type 8 and the type 9. The type
Mm-hmm.
8, you're going to see those women as being absolutely strong, in command, in control. And in fact, unfortunately, they're misunderstood. And so they're called the B word a lot of
Yeah,
times.
yeah.
A man who's that way, oh, he's a leader, and he's strong. But unfortunately, the girls get a bad rap. And but she's doing those things. She's putting up a wall or armor because she's actually afraid, her core fear, that she's going to be controlled, harmed, betrayed, manipulated, and at the mercy of injustice. Her desire is to protect herself and those closest to her. Well, if you know
Mm,
that and that's your wife, you're going to understand that. Oh, because you might be thinking, oh, she's got it. She's strong. She'll take care of herself. I don't, she's not that kind of person. She's not worried. No, she is, because she's experienced that before. She's experienced harm. She's experienced control. And so she's putting up this really strong armor, or this leadership armor, because she doesn't think anyone else is going to protect her, that she's really ultimately on her own. And so by understanding that, you're like, oh, she actually, a hidden struggle or hidden desire that she has is that someone bigger and stronger would actually take over and protect her. Type 8s don't need to be the strong one. They just want to know that there is a strong one that will lead and protect them. And
mm,
so when you understand that and you provide that, whether that's actual safety, whether that's intimacy, whatever it is for her, because all women, it might, yeah, we all want physical safety, but there's a lot of different layers of safety and security. So for her, asking her, what does safety look like for you? What feels unsafe? And how can I protect you as the type 8, which is very different than what I need as a type 9. And so, again, that's why I was saying yes. And that's where the Enneagram is going to really help you, because you're going to be able to tailor or customize your curiosity and questions into her world, not everyone else's world, but her world, which is great. And that's what men want, right? Like, just let's cut to the chase.
mm-hmm.
Give me the cheat sheet. I don't want to have to figure this all out. Well, I'm giving you all the cheat sheet. The Enneagram is the cheat sheet. And and so that's really beneficial, because, like I said, a lot of men would discount that these type 8 women need protection. They just look strong. When in fact, they're really desperately wanting it because they're so tired of holding up that big armor all around them. Does that make
That's
sense?
that's that absolutely makes sense. I'm questioning right now in my own mind, hey, is my wife a type 8? So years ago, before I like really dove into my Christian faith and relationship with Christ and understanding what the Bible wanted me to do, my wife was pretty good at a lot of stuff, and I was like, cool, you take care of that, and then I'll take care of the paycheck, and life's good. And then being spiritual leader in the household, leadership in the household, I'm like, wow, there's a whole lot more responsibilities that I need to take on and learn and accept and everything else. When that shift happened, my wife's kind of overall personality changed and our marriage got a lot better and those type things. So, yes. And then in addition to that one, there can tend to be a lot of type 8 women out there just in general that get noticed a lot, that maybe get talked about a lot, and the B word gets thrown. Oh, that lady's just a B word. Well, she might not actually, that might not be a real motivation. Like she's wanting that protection, affirmation, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's like now we just throw a negative label on a person, and now we're going to discount them from our lives or not help them or not give them the benefit or whatever it is.
Yep.
And we're going to complain about them for the rest of eternity as opposed to,
Being
understanding in a
curious.
different way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Being
Being
curious and,
curious, attuning to them, validating their perspective. And let me give you an example again about the type 8. The type 8s, a lot of people experience them and they'll talk about them as being a bulldozer. Okay. And I'm like, no, you're not seeing them for who they really are, the why behind what they're doing. So a type 8 is actually a big diesel snowplow. Now you're in St. Louis, I'm in
yeah.
Nashville. We don't
Yeah.
have those down here. We've got people with Ford pickup trucks that are shoveling off a little snow when it ever does come, because it rarely comes. But I lived in St. Louis for 4 years. There's a lot of snow, and no one's getting anywhere unless you have these huge, big diesel snow plows. They're designed to plow a path for others, to benefit others. An eight at their healthiest is like a big diesel snowplow who recognizes this is my charge. This is what I get to do. And they are happy and delighted to get in that big diesel pickup or snowplow and just go for it. And so they have a mission, they're heading, they're strong, they're intense, right? Like when you're around one of those, you're like making sure your car is nowhere close, right? Um, but when a type eight, so when they're healthy, they see everyone like, hey, get behind me. I got this. Right. And it's like, awesome. Thank you. But when they start to become less healthy and kind of in autopilot mode, they're going to be so focused on what needs to happen and take the charge that they might not notice the cars that are nearby and start nicking them on the side of the road. And these cars, these people are like, hey, what's up? Why'd you do that? Or why were you so blunt? Why were you so strong? Why were you so definitive? Like, don't you know that that's hurtful? Or why are you so intense or intimidating? And the big snowplow is like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm just being me. Don't you see I'm coming? Like, why are you in the way anyway? And they're not trying to be insensitive. They just think I'm doing what I was built to do. And they just have not noticed what was around them. Now, when they're unhealthy, they really don't care that you're in the way. They're meant to plow and they're going to plow and take it or leave it. So I paint that as a picture because I think a lot of people that experience eights experience, because we're all in autopilot most of the time. Now, we obviously can be healthy and unhealthy, but I would say that a lot of us are in autopilot. So a lot of times eights aren't naturally thinking about others because they've got a thing to do. And so for, let's say your wife is a type eight, people are going to talk about how she's so strong and definitive and blunt and direct. And why can't she say things softer? Why can't she be more peaceable? Why does everything have to be a conflict? Actually, eights call it confrontational intimacy. It is a nine. I'm like, that's not a thing. And they're like, yeah. Oh, and when you see eights, they're like, yes, that's it. Like, I want to spar with other people. I want to debate. I want to know that you're in this with me. And I'm like, no, that is not me at all. And so when we understand this and you're able to see, let's say your wife is an eight. Now you can champion her as that snow plow that's going to plow a path for others. And when she does kind of nick people on the side of the road, you can know, wait, her heart, her intention is to be helpful. She's just a little unaware, and I get to help her. I get to walk alongside her and support her, and you guys get to work that out. But do you see the difference? So that's where we can champion others by knowing exactly why they're doing what they're doing, how they get off track, and help them to get back on track if they're willing to listen and receive, like you were saying to your
Hmm.
baseball team, like being
Yeah.
coached,
Yeah.
But of
Yeah.
course, you don't want to coach them. You want to be a friend walking with them as your wife.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
But
100%.
does that kind of sound? I don't know if she is an eight, but does that sound familiar?
Yeah, yeah,
The snowplow.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think about different people in my life, and we're talking about women. So there's a few different women that I've observed this behavior from. I'm like, yeah, you're totally right. Like they're awesome when they're on, and when they're, I'll use the word unhealthy. I'll go with that. Then they are not people I want to be around.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then, a day later, a week later, a month later, hey, remember that day? What? That never happened in
exactly. And
your
that is
world.
exactly because they do not see it that way at all. And that's again where the Enneagram can be helpful because you can have that common language to talk about it in a non-threatening manner.
Yeah. So what's maybe another one that husbands would like to know? Like
Yeah,
if
yeah.
somebody just handed me this note card that said, "Hey, by the way, this might help you the rest of your life." What's something else we should know?
Oh man, so many things. And that's why Becoming Us is a really helpful book. I think they'll enjoy that um, because it's about marriage and
The
relationship.
the fixer thing's one if you don't have one.
Yes, the fixer. Yes. So what hey, it's a gift as a male that you want to fix things. But women grow up constantly feeling like there's something wrong with them, and they never feel fully accepted, which is why they're looking around and comparing themselves with others. So when a husband is trying to fix, that means, oh, there is something broken about me. And he can't even validate the perspective I'm living through or the feelings that I have. And so he's now not a safe place to go to.
Mm.
So then there's a gap in the relationship. And so what the wife is wanting is to be attuned to be heard, and to be validated. That doesn't mean that you're saying she's like how she's doing it is right, that it's truth that she's believing. Those can all be, yes, she's hearing that she's not hearing it right. Maybe she's believing false messages. All of that could be true, but she wants to know that you're listening and hearing her and validating that that's her perspective. And then and seeing if she's willing to hear a different perspective, but come in alongside her, shoulder to shoulder versus down at her, which is the fixer mode. Even though your heart might be in a super soft space, she's experiencing it as, see, he doesn't want to take time to listen. He just wants me to fix it. He wants me to be quiet. He just wants me to get over it. And that's only going to create distance and frustration, harm, all that kind of stuff. But again, with the Enneagram, if you know that your wife is, let's say, a type 5, for instance, a type 5 is the analytical investigator, they need a lot of time alone to recharge their interaction battery. So their relational battery, it gets depleted very quickly. Well, that can feel to, let's say, a type that wants to be close and connected all the time. That could feel like they don't love me. They're always off. I'm abandoned. When in fact, the type 5 really does need time alone to process their thoughts and feelings and to recharge. It's like their battery on the phone when they wake up and they unplug it, it's got 20% the whole day. Well, if you've got 20%, you're going to ration that, and you're going to
Yeah.
be kind of
Yeah.
looking for the next time you can plug in. You're not going to be streaming ESPN or whatever it is. And definitely if someone grabs your phone and is like, let me show you this ESPN live thing. And you're like, no, 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 I've got 5% left and I have got 5 more hours left in the day. I don't even know when I'm going to get to charge this. So if you know that your wife is a 5, now you can say, I would love to spend some quality time with you later tonight, but I know you've been with the kids. You've probably been super depleted. How can I help you recharge your battery and for how long so that later we can actually have closeness? I mean, you will radically change your marriage with a type 5 if you have that language. And so again, it's less of a fixer mode. It's more of a let me come alongside you mode.
And I think even something similar to what you just said kind of just works with any marriage
It
anyway.
does. Well, and with any man, what I just said, I bet there's a
Oh,
type
yeah,
5
yeah.
that's listening going, oh my gosh, if someone said that, like if my wife, I come home from work and she wants to go hang out with the Smiths, they're always going to be like, no, I'm done. I'm fried for today. I cannot. But if she were to say, hey, we're going out with the Smiths later today and like in an hour. So I know that you need time to recharge. That's who you are and how you've been designed. So I'm going to provide space for you 30 minutes because I also need some space because I've been with the kids all day. I'm going to provide 30 minutes for you to be able to do what you need to do. I'm going to protect that. I can guarantee you there are men out there that are like, that's a thing. You can have that kind of conversation.
Right,
Yes,
right.
you can when each other knows how to take off their lens and empathetically put on the other person's lens. And it is truly remarkable. It doesn't happen all the time, but even if we have these quick wins in our relationships, it can change the course of our intimacy, our relationship with one another, and our relationship with our kids. Because now we can kind of team up together or support each other in the way each other likes to parent or feels is important. So to me, it's just, again, it's a cheat sheet. So if men like cheat sheets, this is the tool that they're going to want to have to reference back to.
So moms like to fix our kids. And I think that's a understanding from a wise perspective of what they're thinking and why they do what they do. Can you
Yeah.
speak into that just a little bit?
Yes. And they're trying, and this goes back to the husbands too, fixing. We're all trying to fix people to put our glasses lens and live through our perspective because we think what we're doing is right, how we think is right, what we believe is right, and everyone else should be like us, which is why your
Yes,
husbands
yes.
get annoyed with your spouse. Like, why did they do that? Or why did they think that? That's crazy. And the wife is thinking the same thing, but same with moms and same with dads to their kids. We're all trying to create many versions of ourselves. Now, part of that is admirable and great. As me as a type 9, to impart to my children the ability to be empathetic and compassionate, thoughtful, flexible, those are amazing qualities. But if I'm trying to force my kids, so if I had a type 8 daughter and I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to force her to be that and to show her that she is wrong for being more of a challenger, strong leader type, I am not helping her to see the glory and the qualities that God has put in her. So there's this line that we need to have of, yes, I want to impart the best of what I have, but I also want to be curious of who you are and to support and to build up those characteristics. Now, again, you can't find your child's type. They have to name their type because it's about the why. You don't know why someone's doing what they're doing. So they have to be old enough to say the why, but you can be curious. You can ask lots of curious questions and be a good student of your kids. So with moms in the book, I'm just encouraging them to to be curious, to ask a lot of questions, to not force your kids to be many versions of yourself, but to impart great things of what you have to offer, but also remain open handed that they're probably not your personality type. And so, what does that look like when God says, raise them up in the way they should go, the bent that they have?
The
But
way
God
they
made me,
should go.
yeah, but
Not
God
the way
made,
you want them to go, but the
yeah.
way they should go, the way
And
God wants them to go.
And God made me to be a type 9 for my 2 kids. So that's not a
Yes,
mistake.
yes.
If he wanted me to be a type 8 or a 2 or a 4 for my 2 kids, he would have made me that way. But he made me to be a 9. So I get to explore what that looks like. And my husband gets to explore being a type 6, what that looks like to be their father as a type 6. And to own one of the things in the book is to repair. We If there's anything that's so vital with our kids is repairing well. We're going to make mistakes. And in fact, there are some times that we're giving them the best of who we are, but they've perceived it through their lens as something different and they're hurt. You know what? It's okay to validate that and to say, I can see from your perspective why that landed on you in a way that was hurtful. I was trying to give you the best of who I am, but I validate your perspective. And I'm really sorry that it impacted you in that way. That doesn't mean I'm the worst parent or what I was doing was wrong, but it's validating and asking them, how would you like me to do that differently in the future so that I am moving towards you versus again trying to make you into just me. And it's a collaboration. My kids know that my personality type, they're not my personality type, and it's a collaboration. It's a both and as we grow older. And same with my husband, it's a collaboration. I can't force him to create this peaceful, harmonious atmosphere all the time. For him, he wants to know like the reality, authenticity, what could go wrong in the moment. And I'm thinking that doesn't feel peaceful. And so we want to come alongside each other and collaborate the best we can and support each other. So I think with moms, the whole fixing mentality, we have to be very mindful and careful that we're not trying to force our kids into being little versions of ourselves.
Yeah, so I love that. That was a big takeaway for me out of the book. And then it talked about understanding parents' core motivations, core fear, desire, core weakness, core longing. Like when you boil it down, you already talked about like here's the simplification. It's
Yeah.
like, guys, we definitely want the cheat code. We want the just tell me what to do. Just tell me
Yeah.
what to do.
Yeah.
And when we can look at that core motivation, that core why, uh, and understanding it's not yours, it's not your why, it's theirs. Get outside of ourselves, it really can help us kind of be that better partner, be that better guide, that better friend, that better confidant, that create that safer space for our wives and our kids.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes it can be so easy as dads to gravitate towards the kids and take their side and everything, and where we don't understand what our wife is going through or thinking through, and we absolutely need to be cognizant of it. And if there are any wives listening, hey, look to your husband a little bit. Those kids are so dang cute or annoying or needy or whatever
Yeah.
they are, but your husband sort of does want to spend some time with you. He actually wants to grow old with you.
Right.
Not grow
Absolutely.
old away from you and then meet again once the kids are out of college.
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly. It's a team effort for sure.
What's one of your favorite Enneagram numbers that you get to
Oh,
interact with?
that I what?
That you get to interact with?
Honestly, I mean, and I this sounds kind of cliche. When I was it's all the nine types when they're healthy. And I actually truly mean that because when I first started learning about the Enneagram, knowing that I'm a type 9 and I hate conflict at all costs, and I was reading, so this is, back when I was like 26 years old, um, just reading about the type 8 made me kind of fearful.
Oh
Like just
yeah,
reading
yeah.
about it. But when I was older and I was getting my training, there were three type 8s in my group that were able to take off that hard exterior armor that's trying to protect them. And I got to see who they really are. And they are some of the most tender, helpful, kind, passionate people. And I could see their pain and their vulnerability. And the reason why I'm painting that picture is I'm not saying they're my favorite, but by having them allow me to see them for who they really are and not just read about it, it allowed me to want to be with them. You would think how I used to be, I would never want to be around a type 8, but some of my like like right now I have a type 8 in my life that, and I've had several of these that are literally plowing a path for me in my business,
Wow.
but in a healthy way. When and they're always kind of like, I'm an 8, I just got to let you know, kind of like I'm making, like I'm coming down the road. And I'm like, I know you're an 8 and I need you to be an 8 and I need you to plow a path for me. And I'm looking forward to you doing that. And they feel so validated and like they don't have to edit themselves. They don't have to, I mean, because they're in a healthy space and they get to do what they get to do and they get to be seen for it. But so that's where I love all the nine types. Now, yes, there are probably some types that I easily more gravitate towards, and some types that like might rub me wrong in some ways. But again, when each type is at their healthiest, you will want to be around each of them. And then it's the same question like people always ask all the time, like, well, like what are the worst Enneagram type marriages? And I'm like, it's when two types are unhealthy, or if one of the spouses isn't willing to work on themselves and know themselves, that's going to be an unhealthy marriage. So both need to focus on themselves and grow in their own way, not trying to change the other person. You can't change people. You can change yourself. And so that's where the Enneagram can be absolutely powerful. You can have two type 8s in a marriage and it works beautifully when they're healthy. You can have two type 9s that are, these peaceful accommodators, so kind. But if they're unhealthy, they're basically catatonic. They're just not really doing life at all. And people might think that that's okay because they're not these big, blunt bulldozers, so to speak, that people call 8s. Yeah, they're passive and they're not doing anything.
Anything.
That's not a healthy relationship. But people will give that a pass versus some other personalities. And I'm like, no, we have to really look and examine at each of the nine types and what level of health they're at. That's way more important than the actual personality itself.
What's the difference between longing and desire?
Yeah. So desire is like something God puts into us, and it can be a really good desire. But it's kind of like if I obtain that, life will be full and grand, and I can just kind of like I don't have to keep striving.
Okay.
Longing, what your heart longs to hear, is what we are trying to gain and strive for. Jeremiah 2:13 talks about how we're digging cistern, like there's spring of living water. We've forsaken God,
Right.
the spring of living water. We've turned and we're digging cisterns or wells that are broken. But it's a cistern is different. You have to put water into it. It's not fresh water down below. So you've dug a cistern, but it's broken. It's like a pool and it's cracked. This is not going to stay full. So then we keep digging more pools that are cracked. And so we're trying to get this core longing from our work, our spouse, our kids. It could be drugs, it could be
Yeah,
sex, it
yeah,
could be
yeah, yeah,
anything,
yeah.
but we're never going to get that. And the spring of living water is what gives us. So when we talk about the core longing, the message that your heart longs to hear, in our circles, when how we use the Enneagram from a Christian perspective, is that Christ has already fulfilled your core longing. You don't have to keep trying to get it somewhere else. Come back to him, the spring of living water. So for the type 8, again, they want to hear you will not be betrayed. Well, Christ was the most betrayed, and he did everything that
Hmm.
needed to happen to protect you, to lead you, and to bring you back into relationship with him. So you don't have to fear anymore that you will be betrayed because he's got you. I want to know that my presence matters. That's what my heart longs to hear. Well, nothing says more that your presence matters than the God of the universe coming down and dying for you and raising again to bring you back into relationship with him. So any of the core longings of the 9 types have been satisfied by Christ. And that's different than the desire. The desire is like, if I got that, or, it feels good. The core longing is really at the heart of a lot of why we do what we do. And it's feels so securing knowing that I can rest and go back to the spring of living water and it will never run dry. I don't have to try to get it from my husband, my kids, my career, my sports, whatever. I can go right back to the source and be fine.
It's got me thinking. Fear is something that people take action on or complete inaction. I won't do anything because I'm so afraid of what may happen.
Yep.
And in that longing, absolutely all these negative behaviors can come from the lack of in that space. Uh, yeah, those, gosh, dang, those two are big, big, big.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can see the desire being the next thing.
Yep.
We had a guy on in one of the first episodes we ever did. He was a Navy SEAL, and he said, I was never so depressed in all my life as the day after I became a Navy SEAL.
Mm.
There wasn't anything else. I looked at the next highest mountain, and it wasn't higher.
Yeah.
There was nothing else to achieve in my life, so I was ready to kill myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
So
And
that, yeah,
that really, like, the type 3, that I could see a type 3 saying that the type 3 is the admirable achiever, and they fear failing, they fear being unsuccessful, not admired, not accomplishing, and they want to accomplish, to be successful, to be admired. And yeah, if it's all about the next achievement, because they don't believe that they can be loved. Their core longing is to hear you are loved for simply being you. You don't have to accomplish. And Christ was the accomplishment and is the
hmm,
accomplishment. Um, and so for the 3, if in their mind, this is the top tier, like this is what I'm striving to reach, there's nothing more, and they actually reach it, that that would be really hard and really scary, because then why would anyone love me? Because I have nowhere else. I can't go any higher.
yeah,
And
yeah,
they're not feeling the fulfillment of it because we can't on earth, and that's why you have to go back to the spring of living water and know, oh, I already have it. I am loved for simply being me. I don't have to achieve. I get to achieve, and there's lots of other things I could do, but I'm actually good right here. So I can totally see how that would be, and that's just a 3. I mean, we could nuance it
yeah.
to the other types, but that would be a great example of why that would be such uh, a painful and hard place to be for that type.
Yeah, I think you nailed it with Chad Williams is his name. What about weakness? Can you throw one out there for weakness about any personality type? I don't care.
Yeah, let's see.
Or is there one that's maybe go ahead, common one?
Yeah, I would say one of the ones that's misunderstood is the type one. It's resentment. And resentment for the type one, they're the principled reformers. They fear being wrong, evil, corruptible. They want to be right, uh,
Mm.
principled. It's about ethics and morals. And so they have resentment that they in the world are not perfect. Well, they have this inner critic that is constantly pointing out the imperfections of the world. It's not like the type one is trying to look for these imperfections. The inner critic assaults them with all the imperfections and keeps assaulting and berating them. And they're just trying to turn that volume down. So they're trying to fix it themselves. They're trying to ask other people to fix it. So when they show up in a room and it's not the way it should be and there's errors, the resentment comes because it's like, they think everyone sees it the way they see it, like we all do. And so they're like, am I the only adult here? Am I the only one that cares? And so that's where resentment comes in because they've always felt like they have to be the principled adult and everyone else gets to be the fun kid. And that's where the resentment comes in. When people feel the judgment and the criticism or the prickliness of the one, um, and so they're just thinking they're harsh, they're mean, they're critical. When if you understood where it's coming from with this loud berating inner critic and how absolutely, so they're getting like 1,000-fold of this inner critic, and we're getting just a thimble-fold. And we're like annoyed by it. And it's like, if we understood what they have to go through, we will have great compassion. Doesn't mean we'll be able to fix it, but we can come alongside and support them to hopefully kind of turn that inner critic noise down just a little bit. So, does that make sense?
Not only does it make sense, I'm seeing it last night. I'm talking to an umpire and I say, "Hey, I'll see you next season. Like you're the greatest. You know, I love it when you umpire games." And the other guy, so good. Like, and he's like, "Yeah, maybe I'll see you next season." I'm like, "Maybe? What do you mean? Like, you're an umpire. Like, this is what you're made to do." And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, "Well, if they fire me, I ain't coming back." I fire you? Like, you're so funny. He goes, "Yeah." I'm like, "Tell me about that." He's like, "Well, there's this other umpire, and they told me I have to be nice to this other umpire." I said, "Well, like that's not a problem." He goes, "Well, she doesn't exactly call the games all that well. She doesn't exactly know the rules of the game all that well. Her own son has came over to me and privately told me that her mom doesn't understand how this game." I go, "Okay." And he says, "Well, I'm trying to help her, so I coach her up on various things. And they don't want me to do that. They want me to be nice."
Right, right. Yep.
I'm like, "Well, why do you have to?" And he goes, "Because I want it to be right."
Yeah. There you go.
And I'm like, That's exactly what you were talking about." Like,
Yep.
he's like, "So I literally am willing to get fired from the
Yep.
thing that I was born to do so that
Yeah.
we get things right."
They have to do what's right. Yeah.
And my
Yeah.
little rule follower was next to me, and I look at her and I say, "Hey, we've got another one that has to be right. Not only does she have to be right, but then everybody around her in her world also has to be right."
Yep.
I'm like, "Oh my
That's it.
goodness."
Yep. Yep, that's it. And so, yeah, so those four core motivations are going to be key for anyone that is just wanting to step into the world of the Enneagram. If you one step into that world and even stay there, I mean, you'll learn a lot more if you look at the other kind of bullet points in the back half of the book of any of our books. But even if you just sit with the core motivations and get to know people through that, you will be amazed at how much can change for
Mm.
yourself personally, but also your relationships.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So, yeah, just in the last day of my life, I'm like, boom, 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 boom. Here's all these different numbers. And
Mm-hmm.
thankfully, I have some understanding of it. So, having that deeper understanding will help you even more. So, Beth, this is awesome. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having
Yeah,
me.
yeah. Down the road, love to have you back. Love to have Jeff on someday. I
Sure,
remember
you'd
when I
love it.
first started podcasting, I'm like, this Becoming Us book. I gotta have these guys on. They're amazing.
Yeah, I mean, have him on. He'll he has so much great wisdom for husbands. I've I don't want to say I've taught him a thing or two, but he's had to learn a lot. If
Yes,
you
yes.
so yeah, but he would be great. But yeah, thanks for having me.
So, what's best? How can people get a hold of
Yeah,
your material, learn
yeah,
from you? Wherever you want to take that,
yeah.
direct them
Everyone,
wherever you want to go.
yeah, everyone can go to yourenneagramcoach.com. That's, our website. Our Instagram is Your Enneagram Coach. Our podcast is Your Enneagram Coach, the podcast. If they're interested in buying this particular book, The Enneagram for Moms, we have a website just for that, and it's enneagramformoms.com. But they can get through it from, our main website, yourenneagramcoach.com. But yeah, that's where everything is at. And we really want to just help people to have better relationships with themselves, others, and God.
If you had a challenge you could throw out for dads, something they can do week to week, could be simple, could be hard, but something that they can accomplish, what
Yeah, I
would you
would
throw out
say
to them?
simple is get one of these books, whether it's Becoming Us or The Enneagram for Moms. Go to the back half of the book. Well, hopefully find your wife's type, um, and ask curious questions, not accusatory, not fixing questions, but questions that you can listen, hear, empathize, be compassionate about, and validate their experience and who they are. That would be a game changer. Just go through the different topics that are in the back, use those as cheat sheets. There's one in the Becoming Us book. Jeff always does this on stage. It's how to affirm me. And so let's say, like for your wife, for instance, if I were to just to say, here are the ways to affirm a type 8. So he would have the wife, and the husband, in the audience, and he would say, okay, wife, I'm going to read these things. Tell me if these are true. And he would read them and they would always tear up like, yes, that would mean the
Mm.
world to me. And they're just bullet points. It's not like anything, long. But so those kinds of things, if they just take those sections one by one and see how they can implement these little sections, it will really change everything for them.
So literally just asking, hey, are these true of your personality?
Yeah. And
Wow.
how could I do that, while being still me, but how do you envision me doing that? What would that look like? How can I move towards you in these ways? And we'll open up such great conversations.
So that's a great daily habit to move forward with, is just asking your wife how you can support her.
Yeah.
And if you want to be more specific, in what way, how can I grow closer to you? How can I get to know you better? How can I take a burden off your shoulders, or whatever it is? And if you know her Enneagram personality type or personality type in general, you can dial that question in a little bit better
Yeah.
in a way where she receives, hey, this guy gets me.
Yeah.
This guy's not trying to love me the way he wants to be loved. He's
Yep.
trying to love me for me and is understanding me the way I am. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. I love, love, love that challenge. It's so, so good. So
Good.
I appreciate you coming on. It's
Yeah.
been
Thanks, Jen, for
years in the
having me.
making. So
That's great. Well, thanks for having me.
yes, absolutely. My pleasure. And yeah, look forward to having the McCords back on someday, whether it's individually or collectively.
Yes. Thank you so much.
You bet. My pleasure. My pleasure. See you guys and implement, take this challenge and catch you guys next week.